Hi. I'm Saida Ahmedova, and I'll be talking about this project that we're working on with Anke Grotlueschen at University of Hamburg, and it is at the initial stages, so we welcome your ideas on it. And what we're looking at is we're looking at the PIAAC data. Of course, we're here at the PIAAC conferences from the perspective of policy borrowing. Our case studies, the German National Action Plan, and we are looking at PIAAC data to see whether the critique of the policy borrowing that's come up in the literature has any traction in the empirical data. So what is policy borrowing? In Germany in 2016, the government came out, or the Department of Education came out with the National Action Plan to address the issue of low literacy in adult population. It's a decade-long plan, so next year in 2026 is actually the last year of the plan. And in these plans, usually they contain strategies that improve adult education teacher training or reskill the teachers in adult education. They have strategies, ways of attracting adult learners, reducing dropout, ways of or strategies to involve employers and so on. And so Germany, in designing this plan, has borrowed from a number of countries that have had their national plans already before, and namely from England, France, and Ireland. In these national plans, usually the low-skilled adults are referred to in these groupings. So perhaps adults that have not finished their secondary degrees, migrants, adults with low country language proficiency, older adults, and we'll come back to these groups using PIAAC data later on in the presentation. And so not every national action plan has these groups listed, but some of them come up in the action plans. So there's a critique in the literature of the policy borrowing because often it is used as an ideology of justification for the country's own progressiveness without an adequate further integration of international research findings into the national context. And so the national contextualization, rather than being central to the policy that's being developed, it remains in the niches of national discourse and doesn't get a prominent place in the national strategies. So our case study is the German National Action Plan. As I mentioned before, it borrowed heavily from English, French, and the Irish plans or strategies of addressing the low literacy in the country, and it focused on non-formal adult literacy classes in adult education centers and workplaces, and some of the populations are missing in the plan. While other countries focus on upskilling of unemployed, language provision for migrants, and second chance schooling, for adults with low skills to get their secondary degrees. In Germany, the language training for immigrants remained sort of in the realm of Ministry of Interior. The second chance degree trainings are the competency of the 16 federal states in Germany, and the training for unemployed was administered under the Ministry of Labor. So getting closer to our analysis, we have looked at the national action plans in the 6 countries as well as Germany, but because the German plan borrowed from these 3 countries, my presentation will be on England, France, and Ireland, although you will see the estimates for the other countries as well. Our research question is, what is the composition of low-literate adults, and are they comparable across countries so that policy borrowing actually makes sense? And as Anke mentioned, your low skill may be different from my low skill, but hopefully we are talking about similar groups. We define our low skills in terms of PIAAC literacy level 1 or below, proficiency. Right, so when we're talking about policy borrowing, if we look at generally what is the percentage of adults with low skills in the country, it gives us an idea of what is the level, what is the size of the target population, what are we talking about? And you see that percentage of adults with low skills in Germany is similar to Ireland, higher than England, and lower than in France. But in general, the sizes, the volumes seem generally similar. So far so good. We can we may be okay borrowing policies from these countries, but then once we look at the composition of low-skilled adults, we may see a different picture depending on the characteristic that we're looking at. Again, age seem generally similar, but it is definitely not the case when we're looking at the language. You see that 45% of low-skilled adults in Germany have a background, a non-German background, right? It's very different than in France, England, and Ireland. And you may be asking, okay, what's going on there? Well, the migrants in these countries tend to come from the Commonwealth and the colonies. So the language is not as big of an issue. And so we are starting to get now the idea, okay, when we borrow from policy from these countries, and they don't have that focus in their strategies, we may need to look at other countries for strategies to address the issue of low literacy. With educational attainment, we see similar situation as with age. We may be successful in borrowing policy related to second chance programs from these countries. Employment status is very much similar across all of the countries. Strategies to address engagement of employed or unemployed low-skilled adults have a potential to work across these countries. When we look at parental highest educational qualifications, again, it is not the case. So the socioeconomic status for German adults, so the German adults have a bit higher parental educational attainment than adults in France, England, and Ireland. This is a summary table. I probably have already said all of this, so we see that in terms of borrowing strategies related to, this is the percentage point differences in the composition of adults with low skills between Germany and France, England, and Ireland. So if you see the blue, the percentage in Germany is less than in the country, and if you see, the percentage in blue is percentage in Germany more than in the country, and in red is when the percentage of adults with low skills. Now, we're just talking about adults with low skills. So the percentage in Germany is less than in the country. And for when we're talking about strategies related to engaging adults that are at the end of their working life, ages 55 to 65, or the ones that do not have secondary education, again, there is this potential of the policies being applicable, and as well as that when we're talking about labor market participation. But if you look at the differences by language and nativity, we have there is a lot more migrants and a lot more non-native language speakers in Germany than in these three countries, as well as they also come from a bit of a higher educated background than the immigrants or than the low-skilled adults than in France, England, and Ireland. This is basically what I just said, written out. And so the implication for German policy borrowing, again, so if we are looking at borrowing strategies that engage adults based on their employment status, in particular, may be successfully applied to Germany, borrowed from these countries, while the strategies that need to address the low literacy based on the migration status and official country language skills may not be as successful. And I will end with this nice quote from Cousin that said, "The true greatness of people does not consist in imitating nothing from others, but in borrowing everywhere what is good and in perfecting it," and here's the key, while appropriating it for oneself. So national contextualization is very important. And that's it from me.